Hi, I am A.Lowery and I am a classical pianist. This is what I have been doing my entire life. In my career, probably I have tried everything that this profession can offer. 10 years I worked at a music college teaching classical piano majors. I worked as an accompanist with instrumentalists and choirs. 10 years I worked full-time at the symphony orchestra, performing in the orchestra, and playing with different soloists and chamber ensembles, along with that teaching a regional music course at a preschool institution. A few years ago, a friend of mine from the same conservatory I was graduated from, which is Kazan State Conservatory in the city of Kazan, Russia, sent me a scan of the genealogical tree of our piano school, created by Professor Vera Spiridonova, with whom I studied history of the art of piano playing. From the chart I have learned that my professional lineage comes from Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and Liszt, among others. It made me think about great many of us living pianists have the same roots, and probably all of us, branches of that tree, have some obligations. Nowadays I teach privately, and many times people ask me the same questions about how I teach, what method I prefer, and so on, so I decided to collect all those questions together and answer them at one time. I definitely prefer the classical method. But before you get scared, let me explain what exactly I mean, because the word classical is often misunderstood and misinterpreted. It can actually mean three different things. The classical period in music, which was approximately between 1750 and 1820. The classical genre itself, those forms, sonatas, symphonies, variations, and so on. And the method, the approach, which I like most. Classical approach is very structured, very well balanced. It builds step by step the ability of handling this instrument. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel, which is already invented. We need just to take it and use it. It's good. Is it difficult to study the piano the classical way? I don't think so. Building our classical technique gives us the ability to go long time without getting tired, without getting our hands stiff, and we learn to produce a beautiful tone. And if you have this technique, you can switch to anything else later on, to jazz, to pop, whatever you like. I definitely insist on playing some technical stuff, like exercises, scales, arpeggios, studies. As for the rest of pieces we play with my students, sometimes we choose not from the classical repertoire. I like collections of pieces by Christopher Norton, or sweet romantic pieces by Martha Meyer, among others. But at the same time, there are so many wonderful, very beautiful classical pieces which are not very often played. So we always find something for everyone. Usually I insist on two more things. Sight reading. It's like practicing every day 1 or 2 or 3 lines a day, maybe 6 lines, but it's not much. It's just 1-2 minutes, that's all. It teaches you to recognize graphic patterns on the page, and you really go faster and faster having those exercises. The best books for sight reading that I have found so far are the ones by John Camber. I strongly recommend those. And the good news is, while having passed the entire book, you begin anew again. You can use the same book 2 or 3 times, and then you go to the next level, because you don't remember those exercises. You go through them just one single time. For the young students, for new students, probably the goal of sight reading is to overcome the first stage of toughness dealing with printed text. And for the beginners, it takes just maybe 1 or 2 minutes a day to go through a couple exercises from the book of sight reading. And then you can develop it, and you can go more with sight reading. You can actually enjoy it. But the toughest part is to understand how to render the graphics into your fingers. And it comes naturally when you do a couple exercises a day. It's quite enough. The point is to do it every day. Also, I think that one should listen to good music almost every day, or at least a few times a week. People asked me many times about electric pianos, whether they are good or not so. I would say it's a different instrument, and if you really want to study piano seriously, you should consider buying an acoustic instrument. Physics is different. The feel of the keys is different. Everything is different. I've been dealing with synthesizers and electric pianos since the 1990s. And I know a lot about those instruments. They are not similar. So you have to decide whether you really want to learn the real thing, because electric pianos are fake pianos. That's all. I don't mean those fancy sounds. Electronic instruments are wonderful, but for a different purpose. The piano is acoustic. It has a lot of harmonics. It has a lot of very particular things about it. Electronic instruments cannot completely imitate real instruments. Even expensive ones, good ones, they can't. If you want to find a method which would help you learn the piano really fast, forget it. Such a method doesn't exist. It's an old story. There are always people who want to learn something like in a week. Well, if you want to learn a little tune with one hand, with one finger, probably you will succeed. But if we want to learn the instrument really the way it's supposed to be, I'm not talking about you being a prospective professional, just amateurish things we discuss, just to play for yourself. You need to understand that it doesn't come in a week or 1 month. You have to put a lot of time into this. Our muscle memory develops a lot slower than we understand things. We can perfectly see how it should work, but our hands don't do any good, because it really takes a lot of routine to go through before we develop flexibility, strength, and independency in our hands and fingers. One's success really depends on how much you practice. All the piano teachers repeat the same thing: you should practice much. When I think about human's memory, I always see this long escalator whose stairs move down, and we have to get up there using this strange escalator. If we don't gain a proper speed, then it will carry us down all the time. If we go fast enough but then we stop, we are tired, we want to take a rest, it slowly moves us back to the 0 point. So if we want this new knowledge to stay with us for a long, long time, we have to move fast. We cannot stop in the middle, or we will forget everything. And we have to be able to move this way long enough to get to the stop point finally, where we finally obtain our freedom to play the piano the way We should, so that we would enjoy it and it would stay with us for the rest of our life. So when you want to send your child to a piano class, think about what you are up to, because it's not about your child only, it's also about you. How much you are willing to help your child to study the instrument. Think about it.